This presentation is about the past progressive tense. The past progressive tense is formed by using a past tense form of be and a verb that has ing on the end. It's similar to the present progressive, but instead of am, is, or are, we're going to use was or were. Let's look at some examples. The children were playing in the street. Our past progressive verb is were playing. We use the past form of be, were, in the plural form because we have many children or more than one child, and the main verb play with ing on the end. The teacher was teaching the class. We have the past form of be, was, this time in the third person singular because we only have one teacher, and again the verb teach with ing on the end. Using the past progressive. We use the past progressive to talk about things that were happening at some point in the past. The action began before that point, and we don't know if it continued after the point or not. Here's a diagram. We look at the point in time, 8 p.m. last night. Someone was studying. And notice that the studying started before 8 p.m. We don't know if it continued afterwards. It might have continued, but we don't know that. In a sample dialogue, it might be something like this. I called you last night at 8. Where were you? And then person B answers, oh, at 8 I was studying at the library. My phone was off. Another common use of the past progressive is to show that two actions were happening or were continuing at the same time. We use a time clause with while to show this. While I was working on my car, my brother was cleaning out the garage. So both actions were in progress and happening at the same time. And finally, a third use of the past progressive is to show that an action interrupted or stopped another action. You can show this in two ways, using either when or while. I was working on my car when my brother called. So the progressive action was the working, and that stopped when my brother called and I had to answer the telephone. We use the time word when because the clause is in the simple past. My brother called. Compare that to the next sentence. While I was working on my car, my brother called. This means the same thing, but we're using while in the clause that has the past progressive verb, while I was working. Let's practice the form. Here are some sentences in the simple present. Change them to the past progressive. Don't forget to look at the subject to see if you're working with a singular or plural noun. She works at the pharmacy. We're going to change that to she was working at the pharmacy. So again, we're going from simple present and we're forming the past progressive tense. The bosses hire new employees. In the past progressive, that would be the bosses were hiring new employees. The head doctor doesn't operate on injured people. We have a negative, simple present tense sentence, and we want to change that to negative, past progressive. The head doctor wasn't operating on injured people. Snowstorms interrupt traffic. Snowstorms were interrupting traffic. Those people don't live in traditional homes. Those people weren't living in traditional homes. Now we're going to add when and while to these sentences. Remember to use when with the simple past time and while with the past progressive. Number one, while I was working in the office, the electricity went out. Number two, the teacher was standing in front of the class when the fire alarm went out. Went is the simple past form of go, so our clause is going to begin with when. Number three, again, when I graduated from high school, I was still living with my parents. When to go with the simple past time. Number four, here we have two past progressives. We're meeting and we're marching, and we use while to show that those things were happening at the same time. This is the end of the introduction. For more practice, you can do the computer exercises on the topic. There's also another presentation on past progressive or the presentation about using when and while in time clauses.